Paul Hunter's in Washington. So is Bloomberg White House reporter Josh Wingrove. So, Josh, let's start with you. You're the Canadian in every room, it seems, that Donald Trump is in. You were on board Air Force One over the weekend. What's your gut telling you about why he's fixated on Canada? Is it because you keep asking him these questions? Or is it, as the Prime Minister says, critical minerals? He hasn't said it yet. Is it water? Like, what's happening?
Well, I don't think it's door number one, although I've seen that theory floated. I appreciate people that think I've got a lot more power than I do. I think what's important here to note is he keeps bringing it up. You know, he brings up Canada when asked about other things, whether it's Mexico or tariffs. And that was the case yesterday when he spoke to us on Air Force One, where he was being asked about steel in the context of U.S. Steel, a company that the Japanese are trying to buy, or at least a Japanese company is. He sort of volunteered and popped off that these tariffs announced tonight are coming in. Now, I should note they're announced with a significant lag time, and he's saying essentially that he's going to hit Canada with the 25% steel tariffs that he had exempted them from in the first term, or at least by the end of it, and raise the aluminum tariff to 25% from 10, and also apply that to Canada. But the same deadline that he has deferred the overall tariff threat to. So that, of course, is going to kick off questions about whether there is some sort of grand bargain in the offing. But I think that people are maybe missing that Trump has sort of Canada stuck in his mind. And he brings it back often to a few subjects. One yesterday was defense spending. Canada's being a laggard in NATO spending target has been long an issue for the president, as has all countries' NATO spending has been an issue. And I think it just seems that he can apply pressure, including by threatening yesterday to, change something related to autos with the flick of a pen, that he could sort of crush Canada's auto sector. So right now, I think overall, the measure is not entirely clear, but, Canadian steel companies, of course, are going to be happy that this tariff on steel is not kicking in immediately, but isn't kicking in instead on March 4th. And now, of course, the question will turn to what they can get done by then. But it has certainly been an unusual one. You can imagine what it's like being, be Canadian in the American press corps, trying to do my job and just get news out of this guy.
Yeah, no kidding. So Paul, you looked at what Donald Trump signed today. What does it tell you about what's coming?
Well, look, technically this all comes under what's known as Section 232 in U.S. trade law, Adrienne, which allows for kind of a workaround on trade deals that the U.S. has signed on to, all in the name of national security. In other words, declare something a threat or risk to U.S. national security, and you can apply tariffs despite trade deals, for example, to protect against that threat or risk. In this case, steel and aluminum. What's the security risk? Well, one could say if the U.S. deems it's too reliant on foreign steel and aluminum, such that it's, if it's cut off, the U.S. might not be able to build battleships and fighter jets in a time of war. Well, that's the security risk. As unlikely as it seems Canada would cut off such stuff in that way, that's the argument. Section 232 gives the U.S. president the ability to basically call almost anything a national security risk and act accordingly as a result. And these tariffs announced today fall under that justification. He strongly believes in tariffs, Adrienne, and clearly he's willing to use them.
And he's done it before, right? Not the first time Canada's steel and aluminum industry was hit by tariffs. Why do you think he wants to do it again? Did it work that well for him?
Yeah, it's not the first time. He's imposed a lot of them before, and he'll likely continue to impose them regardless of where this latest round ends up taking him. He campaigned on tariffs. And look at him in office right now, emboldened like never before, flooding the zone, as they say, with so many executive orders, directives, threats, and beyond. In 2018, he imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. At that time, it was 25% and 10%, respectively. And Canada retaliated with targeted tariffs in America. By 2019, the next year, Canada was exempted from the U.S. tariffs, and then Canada dropped its tariffs against U.S. goods. This came when the countries ratified the new NAFTA, something some believe Trump now wants negotiated again, and that all of this might simply be a tool aimed at forcing that new renegotiation. But there's another reason, Adrienne. Tariffs are basically taxes on goods coming into America. Every dollar collected by a tariff is a dollar that goes into U.S. government coffers at a time Trump needs to find a way to pay for tax cuts he promised during his campaign for the White House. This, in theory, could do that. And so in no small way, Trump could see it as allowing him to make that tax cut. But truly, the tricky part in answering any question about Trump's thinking, Adrienne, what's actually truly behind all this is that no one really knows.
So, Josh, we only have about 30 seconds left. And I'm curious, you were talking about being in the room. What have you been able to glean from the reaction of his advisors in the room when he talks about Canada, and then how they respond to you and the media after?
The president's allies are signal boosting his complaints about Canada, even the ones like on fentanyl. You don't have a lot of data to support, large volumes of fentanyl coming across the border. I think what's important to understand here is that there's a bipartisan consensus that trade is broken and has problems. Both parties have issues with USMCA. Trump is trying to completely remake it. He wants to lower the corporate tax rate for companies that make their things in America. He wants to add general tariffs, including on Canada. He wants to add extra sectoral ones, like on steel, but also like on pharmaceuticals and computer chips. This is all part of a mix to sort of onshore things. He keeps saying he wants to make cars in Detroit. I think these are all warning signs for Canada, even if there is some kind of grand bargain here. Clearly, Trump does not like the status quo.
All right. Josh Wingrove and Paul Hunter, thank you both.